Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to project 1. In this project, we're actually going to be importing in a project which we have created for you, a model which we have created for you, and we're actually going to be showing you guys how you can be doing rendering in that particular image. It's a very small project. So the first thing I'm going to do is click on File and Open, and I'm actually going to open up the P1 room close-up. So you must have downloaded these in the first topic itself. We have given you guys files to download. So please download those files and open up the room close-up P1. Now this is eventually a close-up of a room, you can see, and we're going to actually be rendering this particular scene. Now you can see scene 1 has already been set over here. I am going to show you guys how to set scenes in the next projects, but I assume that you guys already use SketchUp, so you all will know how to set scenes. But if you all don't worry, I'll show you guys in the next project. Now, since this project only has one scene and one render, we're actually going to only be focusing on this particular scene. Of course, you can take out another scene like this or another scene like this. Just make sure that the skirting has been completely created out well enough. Now, what I'm going to do is, the minute you guys set your scene, you guys have given the materials, and you can see over here we have around 10 to 12 materials that we need to edit. You guys are going to open up the asset editor. Now, the minute I click on the asset editor, you guys will notice that the first thing we get is, we completely get a box over here which opens up, and I can open up my material tab as well. And you can see I can go ahead and select all these different materials, and they are all brand new materials which we have to work on. So these are just a couple of things that we are going to have to look after. So the first thing we're going to begin with is any material which you like, you can pick up, and we can start with the editing. So I'm going to start with the background, which is basically this, and it's concrete corrugated smoke. So we're trying to get a very raw textured look over here. So I'm going to go into quick settings, and I'm actually going to increase the diffuse color, but since there is some texture, it's not actually going to see. You can see I've increased that a little bit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply jump up to bump, and I can change that. But remember, I'm working under generic over here. So what if I change this and I go into paint? What's going to happen is we're going to have a slight glossiness which comes. That's okay. We can reduce it if we want to later, but let's keep it at paint. We don't have to waste our time with other, settings as well. So here in the bump, I'm actually going to open up a texture, but not from bitmap, but I'm going to use noise, which is one of VRAY's maps altogether. And what that's going to do is it's actually going to create this nice raw look, rough look on this whole texture. And what we can do here is we can actually reduce the reflection slightly, and I can increase the bump a little bit. So you can see the more bump I increase, the more it starts to get embedded like that. And over here we can actually see a couple of more changes which I can do is I can increase the amplitude a little bit, so it gets a little bit more rough over here. And one of the colors I can keep it, let's say, dark gray, and the other one I can keep it light gray, something like that. So we have a very dark color texture, and that's what's going to eventually show up over here. I can increase the bump depending on how much I like it, and we can have this diffuse color reduced a little bit, so it goes a little bit towards the dark tinge, or if you want it, you can even keep it towards the light color. So I think the light looks better because then this is going to be very dark colored, and so is the flooring. So once you're done setting this up, then we can go to the next one, which is this particular material, and over here we're going to have to give it as metal. So the first thing I'd like to do is simply change this into metal, and that's the best way to actually do it. And I'm going to switch this off and reduce this to dark, so we get a dark colored metal. At the same time, I'm actually going to reduce both of these so it feels more darkish, blackish, rather than a very reflective surface. And I'll reduce some of this so we have a little rough looking metal, because again, it's just a frame. This itself is an image, so it's completely fine. Also, you can see that there is no settings for this. After this, we have got this particular thing, which is the lamp shade. Now the lamp shade has to be a little bit, it has to be a little bit translucent, a little bit see-through, a little something like that, which will actually give us a much better look of this whole thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to go ahead here and switch it to glass, which we get something like this. Now this could be a little too much, so I will reduce the reflection as well as the glossiness, so that it is glass but it's not too glossy, because that's not how a lampshade would look. And at the same time, I can just kind of keep keeping that peach color in mind, which I want, you know, for the whole thing. I think this gives a nice look to it, which we can actually go ahead with. Then we have the next one, which is basically the steel. So remember, what I'm doing is I'm just using the quick settings to kind of set up the materials the way I want, and then we'll take out one render, and then what needs to be edited more, we'll go into the VRAY BRDF then to edit it more. So don't just think that, okay, I do a couple of settings and I take a render and I'm done. You'll actually need to make sure that you have completely given a very good look to everything. You have actually thought it all out completely, and then you are going in for the final render. So before the final render, we'll be taking around a couple of renders, maybe 3 to 4 renders before that itself. So once I'm done with this, I've selected this, I'd shift this to metal as well, and the minute I do that, I'll actually turn this to dark color. We can reduce that. Oh, actually over here I can change this to maybe a very white color metal. I think that would also look really nice. Maybe we can do something like that. So we need a little bit more IOR over here, and I think we can keep it bright like this. Let's try it out and see what the end result looks like. Then I've got these glasses, so these glasses have to become glass. That's of the thing what has to happen, and this too will become glass, something like that. Here we have got this particular material, so I think this looks fine. We can keep it, why not keep it like white or something like that, which just stands out on a red color thing. So let's try it out, let's see how this works. But always make sure that your materials are given all the texture inside completely properly. So you can actually see over here that the outside color is this, but the inside is still full solid like this. So it's actually not going to look that great. So let's kind of give it glass over here as well and change this to a bright color like this. I'll do the same for this one. So that's great. Now we're actually going to get a complete see-through. I don't know why there was water sparkling over there, but for whatever reason, sometimes things happen. Again, this is an object from the warehouse. Making sure that we have gone into the material and given color will actually help us out a lot. And you will notice that this can cause a problem later on when you guys create models of your own. Here I'm going to give this to metal, which is the foot. As you can see, this is now metal. I'd like to give it a dark color metal, so I'll actually reduce all of this a little bit. So we've got this dark colored metal. Yeah, and I think I'm good enough with this. Now for the flooring, I don't want to use anything which SketchUp offers. I want to actually use VRAY material application. So I'll open up the VRAY material application. Let's go to wood and laminates. You can select anything and just drop it over here. It comes out here, and then simply place it over here. Now you guys can actually see how small this is, right? So we'll need to edit it out, let's say 1.5. This gives a bigger look, maybe even a little bigger, maybe 2.5. You can see this gives a very nice actual look to it. And I don't want to do too much of editing here because you can see the shadows, the lights, everything's falling pretty much well. But I like to increase the bump so that there is a little bit more texture over here. Of course, let me just take a render out and then I'll actually come to know what's it looking like. And once I'm done with this, you guys can see I've actually put up materials in all the spaces except for the chair. Again, for the chair, I would suggest to use a VRAY applied material. So here we can simply go into leather, and over here we've got this leather. Now, though this is leather, let me just go ahead and apply this over here like this, and even over here like this. Now, though this is leather, I think I'd want to put up some kind of geometry on it later on, but that's okay. For now, we can start off with our initial test render. But before I even take the test render, you know that this is going to be a bulb, right? So why don't we just give it emissive already? Or even you can select this and make sure this is in a group, right? So you can actually even give it a mesh clip like that. That will also kind of make it glow. But I'm not going to give it a mesh clip. I'll actually just give it emissivity. I think emissivity is a good way to do it as well. Let me just increase that out over here. We'll get a little bit orange tinge to the light, something like this. And I think this would look really neat. Now let's take out a render and actually see how this thing is looking, because we have worked on the materials. So let's do a first render and then we'll come back to it. So here I'm not going to do any settings over here, just simply hit a render, and we can actually see how this render is starting to turn out. So let's just have a look at this. I honestly feel that don't worry about the darkness, because of course we're going to put light in it eventually, but let's just see how this render turns out to be. Well guys, as you can see, this is the render that we have. Now over here there are a lot of things which have gone right, like the metal I really like. I like this metal as well. I think this is fine too. I think the light is also done well, but then there are some things like the lampshade which have gone wrong. And I think this is looking fine, but maybe we can add some geometry. I don't know about the tiles yet because it's really dull, but let's add a light later on and then see what it looks like. But otherwise I think around about the first initial test was also quite good. So let's just end this over here. Now there are a couple of things that we know have to change, so that I'm actually going to go ahead and start with that, which is first of all this lampshade. I honestly don't want to give it glass. I want to shift it back into generic so I can actually have complete control over it. Let's switch off the reflection completely, and let's have the refraction just slightly on. Let's have some gloss in it, definitely little bit of reflection so that the gloss kind of affects it. I really think this is fine. Now we can reduce the fog color so that it's dull, but the reflection was too much, I assume. That's why it was, reflecting out not that well. And we can reduce the refraction so that it is see-through, but it's not that much visible the way it was. Now, once I'm done with that particular setup, I can actually just do a very basic interactive render to see how it is done now. Alright, so let's just do a basic interactive render to kind of see what it's looking like. And you can still see over here that there is there is this kind of glare in the whole thing, and that is happening because of a certain reason. So let's actually check the whole material out like this. Now we can see that it's actually happening over here, some glare. So let's see if the inner material of this lampshade has actually changed or not, so let's just get into the inner materials of it and actually check that out. So I think that is fine, but what we can do to actually sort that out is, let me just shift back over here. We don't really want that much of glow in that particular space. So what I'm simply going to do is I'm actually going to reduce the refraction a little bit over here. So that's actually going to reduce the refraction in total. It is actually getting a little bit more opaque. I think this is looking a little bit more sensible this kind of way, though this is glowing a little too much, but I think that would actually change out later on. So let me just increase this refraction a little bit, and what I can do is, let's say if the refraction is completely closed, it's not going to actually it's going to actually be like a very dense lampshade. Let me just reduce the opacity slightly. So if I reduce the opacity slightly, then maybe we'll be able to get a very better look. So we didn't have to reduce the refraction that much. I think this looks much better, definitely much better than what it was looking previously, right? So I think this looks much better. So let's just stick with this. I think this is great, and this is about what I want you guys to do in the material settings. Now a couple of things can be updated in it, but definitely I'm going to be getting into those things in the next topic of this same P1 or project 1. So I'll see you guys in the next topic of project 1. Till then, please at least bring it up to a very basic render with the simple quick settings so we can move forward. Take care guys.